have the time?
Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just like to remind everybody tonight that this meeting is being broadcast over local cable access television and recorded by our local print media. Student advisory, don't have students here right now, so we're going to skip down. We're going to vote on the minutes. The next meeting was a minor edit I want to make to the minutes I found last second. I'll forward those edits to you over the next couple of weeks, and we'll vote on the next meeting. Why don't we go to the extended choral field trip to Williamsburg, Virginia? If I could have Mr. Bloom, if you could come up and present.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Some goodies to share.
I thought he meant food.
Hi, everyone. As always, thank you for allowing me to speak with you. And I come on behalf of a singing group that has had a rather remarkable year, as you've probably seen in newspaper coverage and whatnot. We've kind of been all over the place. In the past 12 months, we have performed for the State House and received some honors. We've performed at Sturbridge Village, King's Chapel. We did a rather spectacular concert with both the Pioneer Singers and the Jazz Band, as well as the Houdat Band from outside. In what was essentially an outgrowth of the Building Bridges program, we called it the Spring Forward Concert. It was a wonderful success. The Tricentennial Town Day, you might have seen, featured the singers with a brand new choral work written especially for them. And then there was the national anthem performances, 3 of them in all. We returned to Gillette Stadium for our 7th round, I think, at the Revolution, the 4th round at the Lowell Spinners, and then, of course, the big call. We were one of the 90 groups selected this past year to perform at Fenway Park. And considering that we've done it now twice, and typically they get something like 10,000 applicants for 90 home games every season, it's an unbelievable honor to just be asked to do that once, albeit twice. Last year's tour was a great success. It was Montreal, of course, and students gave 3 performances in addition to doing a lot of sightseeing, getting a real taste of French-Canadian culture, and getting to see a Cirque du Soleil show before it premiered in America. Over the past few years, the Pioneer Singers, I've traditionally come to you with a sort of a cycle of Montreal, New York, Washington, Montreal, New York, Washington, again and again. But there's one trip we've only done once, and it has always stuck in the back of my mind saying, when can we do this again? And this seems to be it, Williamsburg. We were there in 2007, and it was the only time we've ever gone down there. And some of the past singers and parents have consistently come to me and said, that was the best one we ever did, even with all the stuff that we do now. At the time, I applied not only for to a performance at a Busch Gardens park down there, but also at the Kimball Theater. At the time, it was a newly renovated facility owned by Colonial Williamsburg with 410 seats, professional lighting and sound. It regularly hosts professional concerts. John Hyatt's performed there, American Boy Choir. You can go down the list. It's pretty staggering. The theater gets a big crowd, even on a Sunday night, and the theater is ours if we want it. And the last time we were there, we got a very big crowd that was very, very enthusiastic. Williamsburg is a lovely, sleepy southern town that rolls up its sidewalks, and there's not much to do after a certain hour except go to the theme park or go out to dinner or go to a concert. So that's what people do. And as you probably know, I'm really big on giving the kids a total cultural experience. You can see that in the packet that I gave you just there from Williamsburg and from Montreal last year. As you probably know, if you've ever been, Williamsburg is a great historical city. They reenact the history beautifully down there. And as musicians, the kids would get a bonus of doing the music from the time. In 2007, they performed a set of early American music, along with spirituals and music that connected both Boston and Virginia. We're both Commonwealth states. We have a lot in common in terms of our roles in the American Revolution. And I wanted to bring that together. I did my homework, did the research, and it was tremendous and received a standing ovation from the local crowd. And I do a similar program on this tour. Why mess with a good thing? The other day, of course, would involve a performance at Busch Gardens. They like to advertise that they've been voted as America's most beautiful theme park for the past 2 decades. As in 2007, I've applied to give a performance at the park the day we're there. I certainly wouldn't go without doing a performance. And they welcome groups from all over the country there, and their standards are pretty high, and they have a surprisingly demanding application process to do this. Like we've done in the past, the kids would be put into chaperone groups with specific rendezvous points. I know the park all too well. I dated a cast member at one point. Sorry, personal info. And in the past, our trips have always been well chaperoned, typically with a 2-to-1 student-parent ratio. And needless to say, I know our kids will be well looked after. And I know that I can rely on them to be sort of an impromptu road crew as well, if need be. The dates I've chosen were given to me as a spring weekend that didn't conflict with testing, major holidays, other school events, and as always, there is a pull-out plan, should we need it, with a minimal loss of funding. I organize the fundraisers. We've done very, very well in the past with kids doing fundraisers involving sponsorship in our programs, that sort of thing. And I think this is the year. This is a special group of kids, and I would like to see them have a real bang-up experience like the one we had back in 2007. And I think you'll agree with me, if you've ever been down there, Williamsburg has, it's a real immersion into history. There's a lot to learn, and the kids will learn some things, in addition to learning some great music, and music that we can share with the people down there. So. If you need to ask individual parents who've been on my tours, I'm sure they would be happy to speak with you as well. I know they've had a great time on the trips. It's not just fun for the kids, it's fun for the adults too. So, if you need to talk with them, I'm sure they'd be happy to tell you all about it, besides my assessment of the whole thing. So, can I answer any questions?
Absolutely. Any questions from any of the committee?
Is this being organized or run through a tour or?
Yes, we go through Capital Tours in Haverhill, the same company we have gone through for the past 14 tours.
That's great.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Bloom, is that a range for the cost, 658 to 749?
Yes.
Am I reading that
Yeah.
correctly? Okay. And that'll be determined as you
yeah.
get closer to.
Yeah, exactly. The quad rooms, obviously, 4 in a room is much cheaper than a single room. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just always applaud the fact that when the trips are put together, there's an emphasis not only on getting the kids to perform, but on making it educational for the kids as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I've chosen destinations in the past because of that fact. Montreal this past year, they got a real sense of what it's like to be French Canadian and living in that great city, and this would be no exception. You've got Williamsburg there. It's an amazing, resource. Let's use it. So.
Any other questions? Mr. Bloom, so we'll vote on this, take action next school committee meeting. Does that
Great.
provide
That's
you
fine.
the time?
Okay. Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you as always for your
Thank you.
presentation.
Mhm.
Move on to the next item on the agenda. If I could have Mrs. Seah, Mrs. Shankland, and Mrs. Holman presenting to us the risk behavioral survey at the high school and the middle school.
Flip-flop just because I have Mary's presentation up there.
So you can do whatever you want. Go right ahead.
Health services report.
Perfect.
You're fine. Hi, I'm Mary Holman, and I am the nurse coordinator for the Lynnfield Public Schools. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to present the School Health Services Report for the 2013-14 school year. The purpose of this presentation is to provide you with an overview of the health services programs and outcomes provided to Lynnfield students and staff during this past school year. The annual data included in this report follows the guidelines for the status report that is required annually for the Essential School Health Services Program under the Mass Department of Public Health. The Lynnfield School nurses are licensed by the Department of Public Health and Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Our primary mission is to provide exceptional health services that support every student's academic success in the 21st century learning environment. We support the Lynnfield Public Schools district mission of improving student learning and achievement by keeping students and staff healthy, safe, and ready to learn. This is our health services staff. I'm Mary Holman, as I said. I'm also the high school nurse. Diana Gerbic is our middle school nurse. Laura Sullivan, Huckleberry Hill School nurse. And last year at the preschool, we had Kathy Bruce, who was working as a special education classroom nurse. She's currently at Huckleberry Hill School working part-time in their DLP program. And then we have a health assistant, Stephanie Budd, who travels between the schools. And our school physician is Mark Pifko, who's also a member of the community. He's also a member of our Health and Wellness Committee. The role of the school nurse is multifaceted and really includes a wide range of responsibilities. Some of them, but primarily we are the healthcare provider for students. We're the healthcare leader within our buildings. We also coordinate much of the health and safety for both students, staff, and the building. We advocate for our students to integrate them into the classrooms. We're a member of the interdisciplinary teams within our schools as well as within the district. We're a resource for health and wellness for both students, staff, and the community. We provide health education every day in our encounters with our students as well as programs and services. And also very involved in student and staff trainings around safety issues for student health. Recent changes have affected really the demand for school health services, and some of those changes are improvements in medical technology, especially in the last 20 years, have really changed the type of student that can come to school. There are increased numbers of students with special health needs. The restructuring of the healthcare system has really impacted the type of student that we're seeing and the services that we have to provide. Inclusion laws, changes in family structure. You have two-parent working families, a lot of family stress, and divorce has definitely impacted and really added to the role of the school nurse in providing needed health care to students. And the rise in social morbidities, substance abuse, depression, and violence, all really have affected and changed the role of the school nurse. During this past year, the school nurses provided care to 85% of all students at some point during the school year. That does not include the screenings, classroom presentations of programs. Those are not counted as student encounters. So these are our activities. Again, this is the primary goal of our department is to provide high-quality nursing care to students to keep them healthy and ready to learn. The school nurses document all student and staff encounters in our school health software called SNAP, which was implemented in 2009 through a grant from the Essential School Health Services. This software also serves as the electronic student health record. Okay. Any encounter with a student is defined as any contact with the student during which the school nurse provides counseling, treatment, or aid of any kind. As I said before, the mandatory screenings are not counted as encounters. And we divide our encounters into categories when we're tracking these with students. First is the illness and assessment, injury and first aid, and scheduled medication administration treatments are the most common reasons for the visit to the school nurse. Every encounter includes a nursing assessment, some sort of health education, and a disposition or outcome. The illness encounters include assessments for acute illness, chronic health conditions, any variety. The injuries are both staff and students include a disposition, whether and they were able to return to class or needed care beyond the school day. That requires that we complete an incident accident report for students and staff that describes the scope of the injury as well as the service that's going to be needed outside of school. For staff, we do all the work-related injury reports as well and documentation of those. The mental health and behavioral health support includes any encounter that requires active listening, assessment, anticipatory guidance, stress management, behavior modification, program support, or any sort of evaluation of an altered mental health status. So, and adding up our encounters for this last school year, there were a total of 19,396 student encounters that were documented during the school year. So how do these encounters add up? Well, if you averaged out 182 days of school by the 19,396 students, each school nurse sees an average of 26 students per day, every day of the school year. And I think that a really important piece of information that's here is that of the 19,396 students who visited the nurse, 93% of those students were able to return to class and continue their studies. This return to class rate is higher than the state average, which was 91% in 2012-13. Students with special healthcare needs require healthcare plans. And in this past school year, the school nurses developed or updated 246 care plans or 504 plans. And that averages out between 11 and 12% of all students in the district have identified special health needs for which a plan of care is required. The individual health care plans oftentimes stay in the nurse's office. They're done in conjunction with the family and the health care provider. And it outlines their specific medical, nursing, and emergency needs. Training programs and staff education are developed based on those plans. The 504 plan is also a health care plan, but it is a legal document, and that information is shared with the teachers. Our numbers of 504 plans are increasing exponentially with the increase in mental health issues with students. Okay, special health care needs. So I'm not able to share all the confidential information that we have, but we care for students with a wide range of special health care needs. The diagnosis is based on information that's provided to us by the student's primary care provider and information that is supplemented by parent reports on emergency cards and health information forms that are submitted annually or as requested. In the Lynnfield School District, we do require an updated physical, which gives us very important health information entering kindergarten. We do an interval health history in grade 4, grade 7, and then once during the high school years, although during high school, about 85% of our students participate in athletics, so we are getting those updated forms every 13 months on students. Students that conditions not requiring nursing care in school are less likely to be reported to school nurses. And then there is the discovery process. And that includes, oftentimes, we learn there are students taking medications at home for a diagnosis that may include a condition that may actually be affecting them during the school day. So our top medical, physical, developmental conditions that we see are respiratory conditions. We have our greatest number of students are those with asthma conditions, for which we have care plans on majority of them. Students with life-threatening allergies, we do conduct training of all staff at the beginning of the school year in understanding the signs and symptoms of an allergic reaction, as well as how to administer epinephrine by auto-injector. Our next area is neurological conditions, migraines and chronic headaches being fairly prevalent. These are documented ones. And then we have a number of students with cardiac conditions, and again, this is with technology. These are kids who are able to be at school and with certain restrictions. Then our behavioral and emotional conditions that we're really working hard with our software to better track. These are diagnoses that we've received of ADHD, ADD. We have 102 students with 58 with autism spectrum. Anxiety, again, this is a diagnosed anxiety condition. We have 47, depression, 11. And these are, again, conditions that we're really just starting to track and are on the rise. So since 2011, the number of students presenting to the nurse with mental behavioral health issues has really increased significantly. These issues are time intensive and really require collaboration with other departments. And oftentimes the presenting complaint at the younger ages is a stomach ache or a headache. High school years, it's a headache, and then missed time, and we're following up on that, and then the issues evolve from there. So for these issues, the school nurse is often the point of entry for these conditions. The public schools in Massachusetts required by law and the Mass Department of Public Health regulations to conduct postural, hearing, vision, height and weight screening for students at different intervals. We're responsible for organizing the screening of these students and making referrals for an evaluation by the student's primary care provider if there are issues. And I do want to note that, so these are the requirements, and this is when we do them in Lynnfield, but the BMI, as you recall, several years ago, there was a mandate to conduct screenings in grades 1, 4, 7, and 10, calculate the percentage, and send that information home in a letter. Last year, the Department of Public Health deemed that we no longer were required to send that letter home, and we opted out of that with just a note in our newsletters that we were doing them, and the parents could request that information, and or the nurse would do follow-up if there was an issue. In Lynnfield, we're doing pretty well compared to the state average. We have 74% of our kids are at a normal or healthy weight, and we have 23% that are in the overweight or obese category. So we are below the state averages, more similar to like communities. School personnel training, again, I started to talk about that, but we really provide preventative care and health education for students, staff, and parents, and interested community members. We're very involved with the community schools and providing them with programs that they need for their before school and after school programs. So we are, we do have certification by the Department of Public Health to train unlicensed personnel in understanding food allergies, insect allergies, and how to administer epinephrine if there was an event. We do provide limited medication delegation administration for field trips. We are allowed to train certain personnel. The school nurses are all certified as instructors through the American Heart Association to conduct CPR and AED programs, and we trained 80 staff last year with a 2-year certification. We're also instructors in first aid certification, and we trained 25 of the coaches last spring in that. We also provide these programs through the community schools and to community members as needed. Just briefly, annual programs conducted by the school nurses. We do bloodborne pathogens, universal precautions every year annually to all school personnel. We do provide 4 programs a year for students and staff in the CPR. We do programs in food allergies, diabetes, health, safety, melanoma, etc., by grade levels. The high school, for the last several years, I've organized these wellness days where we really address student health risks and also ways of managing stress. We're going to review the youth risk survey this evening, which is conducted every 3 to 4 years. We do a lot of concussion education, both at the community level, grade level, as needed. Human development is done at the 4th grade level with the parent evening, kindergarten screening. The nurses are part of the parent orientation as well. Growth and development in grade 6, and then some out-of-school clubs, so the walking club that Chris Shields started at the Summer Street School, and Laura Sullivan's involved in the Kindness and Leadership Program at the Huckleberry Hill School. And preventative care, I am chairperson of the Health and Wellness Committee, and the nurses are all involved in that as well. And we do host 4 meetings a year. That is, again, a DESE mandate. We are involved in emergency preparedness. We implemented the medical emergency response plans in our schools as required by DESE in 2012. We are supposed to have 2 to 4 planned drills annually. We try. And we are involved in making Lynnfield a heart-safe community. As you know, Lisa Prosciutto, through the Prosciutto Foundation, donated AEDs in all our schools, including the preschool now. And we have also, the Bruins Foundation donated an extra trainer to us, so our athletic trainers have 2 portable AEDs, and we really have certified a number of people, so it's been a good thing. So lastly, I just wanted to summarize and just review that healthcare issues present some of the greatest challenges facing our society. I think I'm very proud of the Lynnfield Public School nurses. I feel like we have, accepted this challenge and welcomed the challenge in the school setting. We act as liaisons between education and healthcare, providing an important link between school, home, and community. We provide comprehensive health services and programs to students that support their educational achievement and promote their health and well-being. Our clinics are busy. I feel like we are doing a great job of meeting the needs of our students. The increasing number of students with behavioral health and mental health issues definitely are impacting the school nurses' day, but we really collaborate closely within our school and our teams and community. Our health software has really allowed us to collect accurate data, provide assessments on students, and really track our outcomes. And this is going to help us determine trends for the future. The fact that 93% of our students are returning to class and are engaged in learning, I think really speaks to our role and the important work that we're doing with kids. Our goals reflect our commitment to not only improving student health, but also using technology to communicate with staff, families, and students vital health information and services and programs and important health updates. Our goal for 2014-15 is to continue to use the technology for student health assessment and outcome, as well as communication of vital health information to students, families, and the community. And this is a picture of, we are changing our health services site, Jen Junkins and the technology people, and it's going to be much more user-friendly, and we hope to have it up and operational in the next 2 weeks. So thank you. I wanted to thank the school nurses for their support, and also Kathleen Dario and Stephanie Budd for their assistance with putting this presentation together. Thank you.
So thank you for the great presentation. And would anybody like to comment or ask a question?
I have one question going way back to the beginning. You mentioned that one of the staff was involved in the DLP. What is that?
Oh, differentiated learning program.
A couple of questions. One of the slides indicated case management, but I didn't hear an explanation of that.
Yeah.
In general terms, without, and I noticed there was.
Case management, right.
Yeah.
That's really the communication, the consistent communication we have with healthcare providers, with parents, with really pulling together the students' needs. You know, students come in now and there's not, like, we oftentimes become the point of reference for really pulling together what their health needs are, making sure that they're getting what they need during the day, as well as providing them with the links outside of school so they can be in school during the day.
So it's almost ongoing health issues with particular.
Ongoing case management.
Students and our staff. Because I thought I saw.
Staff is confidential, but we do.
Oh,
I mean,
I know,
you know,
of course.
with the software we have, I mean, Mike Belay asked me to talk about this because he loves it. We're able to, like, really provide a record that they then bring to their physician for, say, if you have hypertension or you need your blood sugars monitored or whatever. We, you know, our software gives us nice little graphs and all these, you know, percentages and so forth. And it's great data for people. And for kids who, you know, for example, if you're monitoring a student is having headaches, and the doctor's office will say, well, gee, can you track that with the school nurse? And so then when they're going to the physician, they come in, I just pull it, and they take that information off with them. Same with diabetics, with the blood sugars, monitoring those and so forth.
Thank you. You mentioned that since 2011, there's been an increase in mental health and behavioral issues. Is that consistent with the state average?
You know, I don't know that because we've really tried to work hard with our software, trying to differentiate an account intervene an illness versus a mental health.
Okay.
So our tracking really started in 2011, and we've improved that each year. But I would say, and we're going to speak to that with the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, that we're seeing a pretty consistent increase in students with social and emotional issues. And a lot of that is what I talked about at the beginning about the changes in our, you know, our whole socioeconomic system and family
Right.
structure
I
has really
understand.
impacted.
And one final question. One of the programs offered by the school nurses is about concussion education. How often does it involve the coaches?
Well, the coaches now have to go through annually the regulations that came down from the state of Massachusetts. They have to annually go through a training. It's an online training program. And the kids as well, any student that's playing a sport, at the beginning, once a year, there's 2 programs that they can choose from. They have to produce a certificate that says that they went through and understood the signs and symptoms. But so we follow those regulations that came down in 2012 from DESE on that. But our big thing with concussion education is, as you know, there's been an explosion of information
Right.
in the media. And so everyone thinks they have a concussion now. So it's really, a lot of it is smaller education. We did bring the SLICE program here through the Sports Legacy, the BU, the Sports Legacy Institute for Families, and we didn't get a great turnout. And it's a really good program. So we do a lot of individual, working with families. I've really tried hard to work with Boston Children's because they developed the concussion clinic and helping them to understand you can't just like have these kids check things off and now they're out of school for 3 weeks. So one of our goals that we're doing with the nurses, we're tracking all concussions that are reported to us and what kind of accommodations are being made, how much time they're missing. It's a big issue at the high school level. I can speak to that. I think a minimum of once a week I'm sending out notices to teachers and trying to work with the families. So,
Thank you.
Just one comment and one question. First of all, I just want to thank all of you for all that you do. I know it is a challenging position to be in when you're always, you're basically there when kids are sick and hurt and need to go to you. So, you know, I know as a community, we really appreciate that. So,
thank you.
but I also, just a quick question, you and Sal started to talk about this in terms of the increase in mental health screenings. Have we seen any other shifts in what kids are coming to the nurses for, either data or anecdotally? Is it, you know, besides head lice, which feels like I get a note home all the time?
Well, I think that, you know, it's interesting because I was just talking with our school psychologist about like sort of changes in trends. And at the high school level, I can speak to, we're seeing kids presenting with health conditions with this underlying issue of whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety, that nobody's really willing to like put a label on, so that it's labeled as a medical condition. They're not in school, and or they're out of school quite a bit, and it's really a big concern. And I'm not quite sure where where this is coming from, why, why kids seem to have less resilience. I don't know. But we are seeing it.
Do they require doctor's notes to come back after a certain amount of time?
Do require doctor's notes. And they have to go by what's being told to them, because there's nothing that you can see. So you have to go by what's described by the family or the child or the student.
I guess I feel like, you guys face, as Jamie said, so many different challenges every day. And, it's as the different problems present themselves, I feel like you need to, continually learn, obviously, about the trends and how to react and handle them. So, what resources, are you able to use the professional development days for these things? Are there resources or?
Thank you. That's a really good question. We are trying. I mean, we actually do quite a bit of professional development on our own. And in school health, we have Northeastern has the Essential School Health Services through the Department of Public Health. The grant is through Northeastern, and we really have some very nice professional development that's provided to us. And it is very current. And I have to say that the mental health issues, mental health challenges have been on the forefront. We've been to some wonderful programs they've offered on Saturday mornings that we've been able to take advantage of, because it's so hard for us to leave our offices. You can't get substitutes. And it's also hard, you can't always leave just anybody with your student population. So that is a real challenge. So they have provided some really nice evening workshops. Leahy Clinic's been another sponsor for some of these programs, and Northeastern. And Diana Gerbic and I did take advantage. The last professional development day was, they had 450 school nurses, and it was a tremendous speaker, Charlie Appleton, and who wrote the book, There's No Such Thing as a Bad Kid. And it was really about, meeting the challenges of the kids and working with them. And he had so many wonderful approaches. And, it was very enlightening, and it was also inspiring, because I can do this, So we try, but it is hard for us to leave our offices.
Any other questions or comments? Someone, thank you so much for the presentation.
thank you.
Really appreciate it. Sarah, you ready to jump up to the plate?
Do you want to do the introduction?
It happens every time.
I'm going to get up.
Okay.
I'm going to get up with you.
Really?
Oh, no, I mean, do you want me to
Okay,
move
maybe
now?
getting up.
Or do you want me to move over here? 'Cause
Because you're taller. We all have strengths and weaknesses.
So, as I said in the last presentation, in the Health and Wellness Committee, one of our charges is to really survey the youth of our district and to get a pulse on what's going on with them. And so in 2010, we did the Communities That Care survey, which really looked more at community connections. And it didn't survey other issues with students. And so we decided to go back to the traditional youth risk behavior survey. And that's what we did this past March. So the purpose of that is to follow trends, to look at trends in behaviors of middle school students. And then we did the 6th grade last year, and high school, and we did grades 9 and 11 to really help school administrators and health and oh, you left that in, okay, to help health and wellness professionals monitor the progress towards meeting school health and school promotion goals, and to develop programming and education to address behavior or social concern, as well as to highlight areas of success or look at what some of your protective factors are. So it provides data on risk and protective factors in the community, home, school, in peer and individual domains. It also looks at prevalence rates, and they compare them to state norms and some national norms for behaviors related to lifestyle, mental health, personal safety, tobacco, alcohol, illegal drug use, and sexual interactions. So the methodology that we used last year, we did it in March, and it was done on classroom computers. And it was a web-based survey using SurveyMonkey. And the questions were adapted from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System, their questionnaire, with additional questions that we added in at the high school level. And did you add some in at the middle?
We added some, yeah.
And a few at the middle school level. But there were some very specific areas that we were looking at the high school. So it was anonymous and confidential, voluntary participation. Questions could be skipped if students didn't want to answer them. And when available, as I said before, the data is compared to Massachusetts and or the national youth risk behavior data sets. There were some issues with when we implemented it this time. The data was electronically compiled in an online database, and any responses with unusual patterns were excluded. It is considered a reliable questionnaire. It's been used for years as a means of collecting reliable data. But we had students who didn't answer several of the questions, and some of it was issues with the actual being an online survey using SurveyMonkey. You had some issues at the middle school. I think the method, letting the kids take it together in the CAF, and I think kids were also concerned because it was online that it could have been tracked, and so maybe didn't feel like those answers were so anonymous and confidential. So there were several questions that were suppressed for lack of an answer.
And
So-
if I can interrupt, Mary. Even though they were told specific instructions that it
Yeah.
is anonymous, they were also told in the same opening instructions that if you're not comfortable answering certain questions, you don't have to. And I guess it would have been, I think we were a little bit caught off guard, because ultimately I think if we were to do it over again, we'd make sure that students are required to answer every question if it's anonymous.
Right.
But it's that whole electronic piece. They're a little bit, they probably feel there's some way we're tracking and when watching them. So we're not going to present anything to you that we feel is not valid or reliable based on that information, because we had to cut out certain questions.
The other piece was there's only one organization, this HR, Health Resources in Action, and that's who Reading used, because I had gone through Reading when we were looking for a company to help us with this, and they have a whole group though. They have a lot of grant money, but anyway, she said, they're the only game in town, so that's who you'll have to use, and it was just very different than when we had used another organization that had run out of grant money. Just in terms of the whole approach, it just didn't quite feel. I didn't feel as connected to them when we were developing this. I felt like we could have maybe, had we known that or anticipated that the kids may have responded in this way, we would have done it differently. But it was the best we could do with what we had.
So we really want to highlight certain areas, areas of encouragement and areas of risk, obviously. So, but starting off the middle school, we had 168 sixth graders at the time last year, and 161 of them actually responded. So after we kind of got our glitches worked out, we did get responses out of 161 students for most of the questions. As you'll see, I'll point out a slide in a little bit where there were only 27 students who had responded to an alcohol question. So I do think that is skewed a little bit. So the high school.
Yeah, we had a pretty equal number in terms of enrollment between grades 9 and 11, so you can see the breakdown there. Pretty equal number in terms of participation. Slight edge in terms of female. That's just tends to be the makeup of our school. We do have more females than males. Other than that, it's about an even split if you're 15 and younger, or if you were 16 and 17 in terms of participation based on the grades 9 versus grade 11. So
we wanted to start off with some areas of encouragement. So the first area being that generally our students seem pretty physically active, about 64%. I think that especially through our wellness program, we're going to continue to work on encouraging students to be physically active and healthy. About 57% of the students describe themselves as just the right weight, which is pretty similar to the high school. And I think this is really encouraging because I think going through middle school, generally middle schoolers don't have a high self-image, so I feel like that's a pretty nice number. And based on I think it was about 75% body, your BMI
Yes,
information.
73%.
It was, there's a few more of them should be feeling like they're the right weight, but I think that's definitely encouraging. And then along with that, both the middle school and the high school, majority of students feeling like they have somebody to talk to. That's huge. I think that says something to parents in the community, staff, teachers, counselors, that kids do feel like they have a go-to person. So.
when I looked at areas of encouragement for the high school, that first statistic, it didn't sound right to me, because 42.4% physically active 5 or more days, and I did a little bit more thinking, and I realized, you know what, winter sports season had pretty much wrapped up for most of the kids at that point. So if you look back to the last 5 days, they probably weren't all that active. That was their spring break. So I think that number is a lot higher. And Mary mentioned earlier that roughly 85% of our kids are involved in athletics. So I'd say that number is a lot higher, and I agree. It's encouraging for the middle and the high school that, I think, but the numbers are probably even higher than that. So 60.6% describe themselves as about the right weight, which is encouraging. Majority, I agree with what Ricky said here, in that so many students expressed a comfort level having someone to talk to. And specifically, as we broke down the results, you see that so many of them turned to someone at the school, whether it was a psychologist, administrator, counselor, teacher. And I think it speaks to our staff and how involved our staff is, and so many of them are coaches and advisors, and they're building relationships beyond the classroom. And this is what it's all about. Advisory, I'd like to think that, yes, it's still a work in progress, but we're fulfilling our mission to some degree of giving students another adult to talk to and to feel comfortable with, because that's, as you know, you've heard presentations about advisory. You know that we're small groups of students working with peer advisors, student advisors, and also a faculty advisor as well. And having an adjustment counselor is key. And the number of students that we have that turn to an adjustment counselor or the school psychologist, I think we need to continue building those strengths, those existing supports. And I know you mentioned it. Your data speaks for itself in the previous presentation on that. So.
Kevin, can I just get in really quickly on the question on the adjustment counselor?
Sure.
I'm working with mine since last year, even at the high school now, to K through 8, almost 3 or 4 times a day. And I know we have an increase certainly in mental health issues at the high school. You're definitely seeing them at the middle school. Is that a full-time position you have?
Wish it was, Chris. Wish it was. Yeah, our roles have really changed. I've been in, actually, as you know, in Lynnfield for 6 years now or so, and my role has really changed drastically. I work more with outside providers now. Getting better communication with doctors and outside professionals, I think that's a real struggle, because I'm also the attendance officer, and I've got a number of kids that are not attending school for different reasons, and it's constant phone calls. You know what the doctor's schedule's like. You know what my schedule's like. Do we have an adjustment counselor in the building every day? No. So it's a real challenge, and it's not just for me. It's a challenge for all of us. You heard it from the nurses. And you mentioned, someone asked the question earlier, is this reflective of statewide data? And I can tell you that every meeting that I go to, every assistant principal's meeting, every administrative meeting, there's a common thread there that they're seeing this across the state.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge up.
and
I've seen the
Chris, you
last just
mentioned,
couple of years, and I got to tell you that is quite. I mean, it's one to certainly handle all those issues yourself. Certainly, that's why we have a full-time adjustment counselor, to have that individual kind of take on that responsibility, because at the end of the day, it's certainly the qualifications of our positions. So I certainly, I know you guys have seen it at the middle school and the high school level.
We're doing the best we can with the resources that we have. So
Certainly are.
yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, and I think, there's more, with the increase in needs, there's more providers, so there's more need to have a point person to be reaching out and collaborating with outside therapists, physicians, and that's a lot of time, that's a lot of effort. And, we've been talking a lot about the adjustment counselor's role and looking at other districts as well, and we're finding that other districts, their role of adjustment counselor, they're kind of that point person who is in front of all the cases and rarely have a surprise, and they're just getting right in front of it and communicating with parents, communicating with doctors and therapists. And so there's a lot to that role.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a little envious at the soccer game last week when the North Reading principal was just glowing about their full-time adjustment counselor and what it's done in terms of their ability to service the kids. So
How long?
I think you know where I stand on that. What's that?
They had a full-time. Is that not the
North Reading, it's been just this past year, I believe, they came on board, yeah, this past fall.
We'll see them on Thursday.
That's right. That's right.
So now talking a little bit about the areas of concern. So bullying, obviously that's something that we're continuously concerned about. 32% of the middle school students, or the sixth graders, reported being bullied at school within the last year. And just to speak to that, we continue to educate the students on what is bullying versus a conflict, and think that that's a constant communication with them about that through assemblies. I run my own several assemblies throughout the year for the students, and awareness, how to react, how to, basically educating them on all the different areas, but also trying to be positive about it. This is what you can do, instead of, this is what you don't do, we don't bully, things like that. I try to make it more positive. We also have, in all the grade levels, literature that's being used at the grade levels through language arts classes, such as Savvy and Wonder and Bystander, books like that they're using to address bullying. We have, luckily, the PTO has been absolutely fabulous about funding speakers for us. We have John Halligan coming in. He's going to be talking about, this is next week, next Tuesday, he's coming in to talk about his son had committed suicide he was suffering from social emotional issues due to bullying and depression due to bullying. So he's going to be speaking with the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders about that next week. We have the One Club now who we're trying to take a proactive approach and be more positive, and we have students who are willing to stand up and teach other students about empathy and modeling for students how to accept others for who they are and highlight differences in how that's a positive to be different from other people, and they're willing to stand up and shout, "I'm willing to do the right thing" from the rooftops. So that's really great. We have a growing number of students involved in that club. I feel like we have a lot of different ways that we're positively addressing bullying. So, of course, I'm not pleased with the 32%, but I think that we'll see an improvement in that, definitely. 32.4% report feeling unsafe riding in a car driven by someone who had been drinking alcohol. I find that that is something that the community needs to be aware of, that it's important for the community to know that kids are concerned about that. We had talked about this as a group, and that kids with their parents could talk about a backup plan if that happens and you feel like you're in danger of getting in a car with someone who's been drinking? Do you have a backup plan? It's more about community awareness and making sure that students, we can in the schools talk to them about self-advocacy, and if you're in situations where you're uncomfortable, making sure that you have an adult or somebody that you can contact and have a plan, definitely. Through our wellness program at the middle school, we do units on drug and alcohol awareness. Sherry Weeks does a really nice job with that. We're actually looking into having a speaker come on drug and alcohol during Wellness Week this year for the 7th and 8th graders specifically. If you look at, did you want to?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen a rise with marijuana over the last years since the laws changed, and obviously nothing's changed in schools how we approach marijuana. I'm not saying I see a lot of it in the school. I think it's more of an off-campus issue. I think there needs to be more education for parents in the community. It's just astounding the number of, that's what you see, kids reported 59.3% report smoking it, whether they tried it once or that's within the last 30 days when this was administered in March. So yeah, I think it's a community issue. I think it's a community concern. It's something that I work tirelessly to make sure that it's a safe learning environment. And I think the kids know the rules around it in terms of the schoolhouse, but I can tell you that would you use the word major? I'd say it's a major problem in the community. Guest speakers, Ricky's mentioned that. I like to thank my PTO as well. We've had tremendous support in the support of the school committee in terms of our budget and who we've been able to bring in. We bring in the best of the best. And when I tell you, you can hear a pin drop in the auditorium with some of these speakers come in. They are just so dynamic and so engaging. They've walked the walk. Chris Herron, we brought the entire school into the gymnasium. It's just, to me, it's not, we don't preach, don't do drugs, don't do this, that. We bring people in that can really relate to kids and what it's all about. So I'm just fortunate to work in Lynnfield and have that support, because I know that a lot of districts can't afford to bring these speakers in, and they don't have the resources to do it. So my PTO gives me a hard time because every time they think I'm always asking for money, but they always come through for me, and it's just great because it's all about the kids. The video game playing, I can't say that was a surprise to me that 40.3% report spending 3 or more hours a day. That's any type of computer games that are not school related. I can tell you what we do at school, because this was the question I was asked when we rolled out the one-to-one initiative. I think we're doing a disservice if we're not teaching kids digital citizenship, and this is the life they live, and they are multitaskers, and they constantly need that reminder. I see adults are just as guilty as kids, and it's embarrassing the number of meetings I'm in, and you see adults, with similar behaviors. But with keeping the idea of digital citizenship in mind, I've had a crackdown on a few cases where kids are abusing it in the classroom. That's why we have I think a well-written acceptable use policy. And if it's a distraction from the learning environment, we address it. There's ways we can disable the app store and the gaming on their device. So I like to think I'm pretty aggressive about that. But the issue is not just at school, it's at home as well, as you know, and constantly parents are asking, what do I do about it? And it's back to doing homework at the dinner table, and not in the bedroom. And if the grades are slipping, you can't trust what your kid's doing. And parents are always asking for help on that one as well. The talking on a cell phone while driving a car, 26.6%. We were fortunate to bring in Teen Drive the last couple of years. Teen Drive is a simulator that we park in front of the building. You've probably seen it. They were here a couple weeks back, where kids can experience both a distracted driving and an impaired driving situation. The nice thing about it is there's a 2-to-1 ratio in terms of, typically there's 2 kids in the simulator. The instructor is a retired police officer, and he goes through the consequences, of what might happen to you if you're, in a paired driving situation, or you make that poor choice of driving while distracted. So it's really, I'd say each kid gets at least 30 minutes in the simulator, and they sign up during their study halls. It's actually more of my kids that are just getting their license that jump on that opportunity. A lot of the sophomores, I think some of the seniors and the upperclassmen they do it, but not all of them are as into it. But I think that's a great age to, get them as they have their learner's permit or, just getting started. And that's through Allstate Insurance, so that doesn't cost us anything at all. And that's through UMass Memorial Healthcare, but it's funded through Allstate Insurance.
Kevin, just real quick clarification on that bottom point. Is this 26.6 of all of the students who took this? Because
That responded, yes.
So,
we're probably looking at only about a quarter of them have their driver's license anyway. So of eligible, it's probably closer to 80 or 90%.
Which is more concerning, right, Jamie? Yeah, that's a great point.
That was my question.
Yeah,
Ninth graders don't have their license.
right. It's a great point. So they're coming back in December as well with that program. So it's been, hopefully that's effective. If we save one life, it's highly effective, so.
So on.
I'm sorry, Ricky, could you go back to the previous slide? I have a quick question for you. So when you look at the 32% of the 6th graders self-reporting as bullying, how does that actually line up with or jive with what you're actually, and I know it may be hard in terms of that percentage, but does that accurately reflect what's being reported to you?
I'd say what's being reported is a little bit lower,
Okay,
definitely.
which might be expected, but it gives you cause to pause and think about making sure the kids are comfortable coming forward. Okay, thank you.
That's one of the things I put a lot of focus on when I do assemblies with them. And I think that the more, I do get a lot of feedback from parents when I deal with situations, and I do feel strongly that I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about my sensitivity towards dealing with it, and getting good results and preserving the victim. So,
Sure.
the identity of, or the identity of the person who came forward. And I think it's really important for them to know that if they tell and they're trying to support somebody else, that their identity is.
But it's good that you feel comfortable that the number of students actually coming forward is close to the number that's being reported on that survey.
It's lower,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
So going back to the topic of mental health, this graph here, so during the past 12 months, have you felt you needed to talk to an adult about how you were feeling, how things were going in your life, or problems you might have had? I consider the 55% at the middle school needing to talk to an adult. Middle school screen. Yep, middle school screen.
Yeah.
So I look at that as a positive number, that they feel like they want to talk to an adult. So that they want to talk to an adult. They are, it's pretty similar to the statistics we had before, where they said they had talked to an adult. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. The statewide, I don't have the statewide on that, but the next one, the feeling sad. Did you feel sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more in a row that you stopped doing some usual activities? That's it's a really concerning statement. We had 9.3% of our 6th graders say that they did feel sad or hopeless. That statistic statewide for middle schoolers was 30%. And similarly for the high school, from the statistic that I had looked up from previous youth risk behavior surveys, it was pretty high. So I consider that, of course it's difficult to see that you would have any percentage feel sad or hopeless. But that's just making sure that we're working hard to identify those students and put into place supports for them, provide information to them and their families as needed, and making sure their families know the resources that are available outside of school and the resources that we have available in school to address those feelings, and make sure the kids know that they're validated, that those, they're real feelings that they're having, and we want to help support them through it. So.
Yeah, pretty similar at the high school in terms of feeling comfortable talking to an adult, 56.6%. Higher on them from the male standpoint. But it's going to flip-flop in the next question. You'll see a higher percentage of females that are really down in the dumps. The one thing I try to say at the end of each assembly is I try to reiterate the point that we brought this presentation in because we care about you. We brought this speaker in because we care about you, and it's not everyone's going to go home and talk to a parent or maybe not even talk to their teacher, but the idea is that there's a peer you can talk to. I always try to look around the room and identify the support staff, because I think the more they can hear that message, you hope that I think the message is pretty clear that we care about them, and that they're more apt to, Mary alone, the number of students that, she truly is a guidance counselor in a lot of ways, and I recently had a kid who got in a little bit of trouble, ended up serving some time in Mary's office just because of the relationship there. And you know what? That's a win, And so, yeah, that's certainly, I think that's encouraging. We'd like to see that even higher. But in the last 12 months, I think the key there is you feel sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks, and you're actually stopping doing some usual activities. And that's 18.6% at the high school. That's concerning. And females obviously came in with a higher percentage there. So when I mentioned earlier, we need to build on our existing support staff, and I know we talked about some of those resources. And it's most certainly having an impact on their attendance at school. And I think the more we can encourage parents to sign releases and have outside providers openly communicate with our staff, that helps a lot. And, I think we do a good job with the electronic communication, because I'm CC'd on so many different emails, and I'm always in the loop, because even with whether you're talking about concussions or mental health issues, I think the team does a great job of identifying that. Just this school year, too, since this social emotional component was getting really difficult to manage, Jen Judkins really did a nice job working with us at the high school, and we actually have a password-protected website where we now track these cases of students that are exhibiting pretty heavy-duty social emotional issues that are impacting their attendance, and things that are going on in the home or at school, and vice versa. So I think the technology is obviously going to be an asset as well.
Kevin, can I ask quick, if you have a serious case, certainly it's a lot of these cases, they have to be handled pretty quickly within hours. Again, back to the adjustment counselor. You don't have an adjustment counselor. Are you making the determination yourself?
Well, we do have an adjustment counselor.
But
in a limited role, right?
Yeah.
She's not there that day.
She's not there, because I'm just trying to
I have a great team. I'm never in isolation. It's, I may consult with Mary or the school psychologist or, the principal or the guidance counselor. So we certainly, I'm never alone on an island. It's just a matter of the difficulty for me, Chris, and you understand the nature of my position because you're in a similar position, is you can't predict your day, and you're dropping whatever else is on your calendar, because guess what? This is the here and now. And, it's ideally I'm in classrooms and I'm observing teaching and I'm supporting teaching and learning, but the reality is that doesn't happen all the time.
Some of these cases could take you probably 3, 4, the whole day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
And at the middle school, I work closely with the school psychologist every day on most cases, because I'm always digging for why did this happen. There has to be there has to be a reason. I want to know what caused it, what the catalyst was, because if you don't know that, then it's difficult to, prevent it from happening again.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the next slide. So this is about bullying again. So the statistic here was similar, 32% reported being bullied. 19% reported being cyberbullied. And once again, our PTO funded, the high school and middle school PTOs funded Katie Greer coming this year. She spoke with the students in all grades 5 through 12, and she did a fabulous job. She came in the evening. We had a pretty good attendance with the parents at night. I got tons of positive feedback. I know Kevin got good feedback as well. She was great, and she did leave parents with resources and ways to communicate with her if they wanted to reach out to her. But I think it is all about, I do get a lot of questions from parents about how can I work with my child to prevent them from being a target or help them change their behavior if they're exhibiting bullying behavior. So we do provide a lot of resources to parents through our 7th grade social studies curriculum. We cover civil rights. We tie that in with social media and cyber safety. So we do a lot with that through that curriculum, and it's also covered in the wellness curriculum as well. So.
The good news is they seem to outgrow the bullying as they get to high school. You know, it's almost comes with maturity, and I respect for the social media. Very interesting.
Yeah, and Ricky mentioned it earlier, but when you see 23.3% at the high school, I'm not going to say bullying doesn't happen at the high school. That would be a ridiculous statement because we do have bullying, but it's not that high. I think part of it is an education of what bullying is. A lot of kids don't know what bullying is. A lot of parents don't know what bullying is. And we have a lot of peer well, not a lot, but we have a lot of when a lot of those allegations arise, you have some peer conflict. But certainly we do have our bullying cases, and I think we've really amped up our bullying policy to make sure we're updated in compliance with the law. And I know that we're pretty diligent about how we treat those cases because there's no place for a bully. But so I'm going to say that's much higher than what I experienced. That's gotten much better. When the Phoebe Prince case first happened and the bullying law came out, it was, we had a lot more business in that sense.
Well, when in doubt, I run it through the bullying protocol anyway, and just make sure
Absolutely.
that we're investigating it as we would a bullying case. So.
Yeah, and in a lot of those cases, it could very well become a bullying case too. There's education there that, the repetitive nature of what could become a bullying case. Electronic bullying came in at 11.9%, and no surprise at all that the female percentage there is higher. You tend to see a lot of the female issues tend to manifest themselves online, and but overall, I think. Just like the way we treat the bullying, I think there's ways we can preserve the electronic evidence, and I think I always tell kids and parents, print it out, and it's that education that comes after the fact. It's not going away. You may delete it on your Facebook profile or on your Twitter, but it's not going away. And I'll tell you, kudos to Ricky because the speaker she brought in, Katie Greer, there, I think she got the message across, and I wish there was a full house in the auditorium because it's just so important for kids and parents to hear that as well. That just don't take to the internet when you're upset or you're angry or you have a certain feeling about a situation because it's going to impact your college. It's going to impact potentially when you apply for a job. There's a percentage out there, the number of colleges that are checking social media now. It's pretty high, and same thing with employers. So, just another plug for that because it needs to be more education there.
And we have had in the past. I haven't done it this year, but in the past, I've had Ray Barnes come in and talk to every grade level about. He basically says you can't get rid of it. You put it out there, you send it. It's out there on somebody's device, and the police can get a hold of it if they want to. So it's never truly gone. So. Right. So that's another good resource that we have in town that should be known.
Well, you mean
No.
what was a resource was our school resource officer.
That's tense. We're working on it.
This next area is kind of interesting, sexual decisions and behaviors. So What makes part of this interesting is, again, the numbers that reported were pretty low. I didn't go back and get the actual numbers, but students, we're low and compared to the national, state and national average, which is at 42 and 47.4. So we're doing pretty good in those areas. We have one thing that I've learned about sexual education. So there is no sex education at high school at all. I know that in the middle school they have it in 6th and then in 8th grade, a fairly comprehensive program, and then there's nothing at high school. So I'm not quite sure. I checked with our wellness teachers about the statistic on having taught how to use a condom, and one of them thought that maybe that was with the locker room or the bus, but there was no classes at school. So just in looking at that statistic, I just wanted to make that clear. The kids do get the HIV/AIDS education. It is minimal, but our biology teacher does teach that, and they also get that at
in 8th grade.
8th grade at the middle school. It was a little bit reassuring that 37.3% that they did were given information from their parent or another adult, and there are several church groups in town that do provide the kids with some education. In terms of risk-taking behaviors.
That's middle school.
Yeah, so starting off with the blower jolt to a head, I know Mary had talked about the concussion awareness. We're doing more and more tracking of concussions, and we had the concussion slice come last year that you had already spoken about. We do provide kids accommodations throughout the recovery, and so that's compared to statewide, which was 21%. We're right along with the statewide average. The rarely or never wear a seatbelt. I thought that number was pretty low, so that's encouraging. Don't wear a helmet. We're always going to have those middle schoolers who don't want to wear their helmet, no matter who tells them. We do advertise it with the kids, especially in the beginning of the school year, and again in the spring when we notice a lot of kids are riding their bikes. If we notice them without a helmet, we will, tell them you need to make sure you're wearing a helmet. We did. That's right. We did have the mass brain injury come. So we advertised wearing their helmets and concussion awareness. So don't wear a helmet when they're rollerblading or skateboarding. That's concerning as well. But I think it's also, a piece of that is community awareness, and I think the more and more discussions we have about concussions, and I would hope that number would go down.
I think the thing I saw that was concerning last year, which I hadn't even thought about because my kids are older now, but there were a couple of kids with helmets on leaving the elementary school on their phones though, so it seemed to me it's like driving on their bicycle on their cell phone with their helmet on, so that's another concern.
And how many that wore their helmets didn't buckle them?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's hanging up.
Yeah, that's the other thing is. And we used to do the bicycle rodeos here, and those are actually really good, and usually you can get the helmets donated. I think it's something we probably should revisit. I think kids do need reminders, parents need reminders. They're willing to buy the expensive bike. They don't want to buy the helmet that's $50, that's going to provide them, or even like ski helmets. When skiing, they really are a huge safety asset to kids and preventing brain injuries. It's huge. So we will address that.
We can adjust it this year, actually. So, continuing with risk-taking behaviors. So, I'm concerned about this slide because I was trying to get more information about where the statistics came from, because we only had 27 students respond to the alcohol question, and we didn't have, we had less than 10 students respond about marijuana or any of those. So, although I'm glad those numbers are low, I'm concerned that anybody may have said those things in 6th grade, but as far as the alcohol, that ends up being, I think that number was from the 27, and Then that ratio was used to report out of 161, so it would have been about 9 kids out of 161 that had reported having at least one alcoholic drink on one day in their lifetime.
So can you just clarify, so those percentages are based on the total number of kids that took the survey, extrapolating from the kids that responded to
Only
the question?
27, right, only 27 responded to
So-
the question about alcohol.
Out of the 100.
Out of the 161.
Only.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6% of 150 said that they, or 160.
Correct.
Responded positively or negatively, however you look at it, about alcohol. So it would be a greater percentage of the 27 who responded.
Correct.
Okay.
So the other questions, they had less than 10 kids respond to those questions, so it was on the other information that I got from the people who did the survey said that it was invalid. So those numbers I'm not as comfortable addressing, but we do, like I said, through our wellness program. Sherry Weeks does a great job of talking about different types of drugs, their effects. She does talk about marijuana and inhalants and cigars and cigarettes, tobacco products. I know she does address prescription drugs. So those are things that are being addressed through our wellness curriculum. And like I said, we're planning on having a speaker come in as well during Wellness Week.
Past 30-day prevalence of risky health behaviors among high school students. Again, we've talked a lot about concussions, 15.8% with a blow or jolt to the head. I think, again, you do a tremendous job, Mary, and I'm always in the loop on how to provide service, the educational needs of these students that continue to miss school or we need to make modifications for. So certainly there's been a lot of education around that. Texting and driving, once again, I hope we can reach more kids through Teen Drive, but we're also, one of our guest speakers that we're slating for the end of January is Kara Filler. And she talks about decision making, and she has a tremendous impact on students and talks a lot about distracted driving as well. And fortunately, she lost her twin sister when she was 17, when the boyfriend was behind the wheel and was distracted while driving. So that'll be grades 10 and 11 because my seniors already saw her a few years back. So, and the alcoholic drink, at least one alcoholic drink, 41.8%, and then you see the binge drinking there, 5 or more drinks in a row at 24%. What I want to highlight is when I looked at the data a little bit closer is just how easily accessible they said the alcohol was in the home. And one thing that we have in place is a memorandum of understanding with the police department. And when those cases come across my desk, I also have a responsibility to address it under the MIAA. So any student that is a student athlete that is found in possession of alcohol, they are suspended from their season of play. And it escalates based on the number of offenses. So I like to think that those doors are opened. I think with a school resource officer, unfortunately, we do not have one. We did for a brief period of time in the past. But I think with a school resource officer, it just opens up the doors of communication more readily. Unfortunately, I think the police are doing the best job they can. I'm doing the best job I can in the school. But in order to really address this and to develop some programming, some educational programming, and also just keeping those doors of communication open for what's happening on the outside and the inside. We're constantly able to tip each other off on certain situations and talk about certain kids, but those conversations aren't happening frequently enough. They need to, and until it's hopefully we'll be able to secure a school resource officer for the middle and high school at least, right, at a minimum. And I know that Jane's working on that with the police department. So, but I think that's an area of concern in terms of addressing this. In social host liability, maybe at some point we need to think about having the district attorney's office given perhaps a community presentation.
Like 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
For a parent night.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
Just to help parents understand what their responsibilities are.
Right.
Before sports. Parent.
Yeah, so we've discussed it at the school level, but it's certainly something we need to continue to discuss in terms of more of an education for the community around the alcohol piece as well. So, lifetime prevalence of drug and tobacco use. Again, you see that marijuana statistic that's at 31.2% here. In terms of lifetime use, fortunately, a very low percentage across the board. If we look at some of the other drugs, I think that prescription drugs at 7%. I think that, Mary, would you say it's probably a little bit on the low side?
Yeah, I think it's probably higher.
Yeah, it's probably higher than that, and based on the number of respondents as well. I think Mary and I are constantly trying to educate kids and parents about prescription drugs, and same thing with school field trips and making sure that they're labeled properly. Making sure you're not carrying them on you during the school day. But, prescription drug use and education around prescription drugs, I think definitely needs to continue to be an area of priority. I think, there's just more education to be done there. And certainly in the home, obviously limiting access to prescription drugs as well. Mary, I think you're in the works for the wellness days of doing something around prescription drugs with Village Pharmacy again?
We had Brian from Village Pharmacy from
Okay.
2 years ago. He was great. And then last year, we had Dr. Shannon talk on more sports supplements, but he did get into a little bit of that with the kids. But I am going to talk to Brian again.
Great.
Because it's also a parent education issue, though. There's a lot of, these kids have such easy access to prescription medications. So.
One thing that I'm proud of, and I think it's a credit to the school committee handbook policy, is tobacco. There's a hefty consequence if you get caught. And, I know we built in a little bit of incentive. I think it was last year when I presented on the handbook that, hey, if you're willing to join Mary's cessation program or you want to quit smoking, we're going to reduce the suspension. But treating tobacco suspension suspension at 5 days, I think is very effective deterrent in the sense that we don't have smoke in the school. We don't have kids aren't smoking, and I think that's a good thing. I'm not saying they don't smoke, but as far as the school goes, we see very little of that cigarette smoke. I'm actually surprised. Well, that's, I guess, lifetime prevalence. So 18% have at least tried a cigarette. And you just hope with the education from a society standpoint that less kids are turning to cigarettes these days.
Kevin, the term prevalence is a bit misleading. Was this question worded in such a way that it asked, did you ever try? Or is it an ongoing use?
I'm trying to breakdown, Sal, in the number of days. Did you try it once? Did you try it 3 days, 5 days?
Okay. It's just,
so prevalence is they tried it.
It's misleading when it, lifetime prevalence.
Yeah,
or
I know.
High school student use it. Okay, thank you.
I would tell you if it was an area of concern at the high school, it's not.
Yeah, we have.
It's not.
More kids are doing the
Chew.
tobacco and the flavored tobacco.
Yeah.
Which, again, they have pretty easy access to.
I got it.
So that last bar is, we're still trying to figure out, Kevin emailed our research person. It said other tobacco products. So we had put in some questions around the e-cigarettes, the flavored tobaccos, all the things that kids now, they're very easy. It's hard to catch them easy, and males and females. And so that is definitely off, though. It's at 70%. It was not 70% at all.
No, I confirmed it. That's they finally got in touch with the data analysis team, and that is an inaccurate.
Yeah.
Not even worth mentioning because it's actually 70-something% that said they have not. So that's just that's misleading, and I apologize for that. But that we were kind of at the mercy of the data analysis team there. But I will say, Mary mentioned chewing tobacco, and that still falls under the chemical health rule. So if you're a student athlete, and same thing with cigarettes, chewing tobacco, other tobacco products, you're going to face a suspension from your sport or your team. So It's against the law to bring it into a school, and we treat it as such, and like I said, we abide by the chemical health rule there as well. So I think that's important for all student athletes to know.
It's still prevalent in the national sports leagues, though, that kids, they look up to these guys. So, I mean, it's still, we did do some tobacco education with the e-cigarettes and a few things during wellness days. And there was somebody from UMass Lowell came in that was doing a health education program, and it was good.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do that again.
And I think we've been ahead of the curve with the electronic cigarettes. You see that in the news now, and schools are starting to ban them, and we haven't, that's been part of our policy. We updated that in the last couple of years. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a district-wide policy, so every school's covered in terms of, because that is an area of concern. They get them on the internet, and I guess I don't want to say too much. I don't want to educate kids, but
Good idea.
but they're not cheap, and kids find a way to get them, basically. So
This is just a summary of some of the things that we've talked about. We have great speakers and assemblies and programs at our school between, I put on the One Club because they're doing a lot of great work at the middle school, advisory at the high school, our wellness programs, and you have a lot of clubs and service learning going on at the high school. So these are things that we spoke about during the presentation.
and just the more the kids are involved, I always think of Mike Maresco, because at every parent presentation he says, we are an inclusive school, and I believe that 110%. There's a place for every kid, and I'm sure you could say that about the middle school as well, and that goes a long way. 85% are student athletes, and and between the clubs and everything else that we offer, so that's great.
And our final slide was recommendations. Of course, we're proponents of a school resource officer, as I had mentioned. Ray Barnes used to come in and do a lot of work with us in previous years with the students and with the administrators. Additional adjustment counselor staffing. I think increased communication with outside providers and, a way of making case management a little more manageable, or not easier, but providing case management. And then you were going to talk about that.
Well, yeah, Kara has a vision, she always does, but this transitional learning program at the high school we're looking to implement, and it's this idea of the social emotional population that we talk about, these kids that are in difficult transitions, that we're in need of a program like this, and we're starting to target it. But the idea is, obviously, an adjustment counselor would be a big part of that program, and trying to transition these kids back into school and getting them adjusted and modifying their curriculum from an academic standpoint. Just with the number one goal being to keep kids in school. So there is most definitely a need for this at the high school, and I think as we build those supports around it, hopefully we can see this through.
Can I just pipe in on that a little
Yeah,
bit?
sure.
So I think that the goal behind this is really, as Kevin said, to support students. Not all students with social, emotional needs or short-term absences from school fall in the special education category. There are some students who aren't eligible for special education services but require short-term modified schedules or short-term reentry into school. So I think the idea behind this is kind of to provide that support, but more so through general education, and have it be more of a short-term, let's get these students back to school, give them what they need, because it's pretty rare for students who have been hospitalized or have had a medical illness to just jump right back into a full course load of classes. So the idea behind this is to allow students to re-enter gradually and give them the appropriate supports they need. And a lot of that is, a lot of communication between the home and the teachers, and getting students back up to speed with their coursework.
Kara, would a 504 plan be appropriate for some of these students you speak of? Because there'd be accommodations that would help them.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to the documentation that we have, and we're working a lot with parents in terms of getting the appropriate medical documentation, the appropriate evaluations that are giving us the diagnoses for something like a 504 plan. But absolutely, I think we would see a lot of students on 504s in something like this. We recently went over to Burlington High School, and we observed their program. They have a bridge program with full-time adjustment program, full-time adjustment counselor, support staff, and it was a highly successful model. But
So you're talking about staffing as well, then, not just a 504 plan for these students you
Right.
speak of, but more resources in place in terms of personnel?
Ideally.
Okay.
Ideally.
Just high school.
But thinking, that the adjustment counselor would have a home base within a program like this, and then we also have other programs through special education at the high school to meet the social emotional needs of students.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions or comments?
There's a lot of really good information here, but I feel like it's a little bit in a vacuum because we don't have any benchmark. So a couple of questions, because we also don't have like any comparison data to state, and it sounds like you do. So my first question would be, in your looking at the comparison data, do you see any areas, or do you see any areas that alarm you based on the comparison data?
I had, at the middle school, I felt like our results weren't alarming at all. I felt like they were pretty much on par with what I expected, and with the comparisons that we had looked at from previous surveys given. So I'm not sure about the high school, but I felt.
No, high school is
I felt
pretty
good about
consistent with statewide data. It's certainly changed the last few years in terms of what we see, and like I said, the marijuana, but that's statewide. And then just the behavioral health piece is a huge component. But no, I think I mentioned that earlier. That's pretty consistent. I think I didn't see anything jumping out at me. I think the technology distractions are probably a little bit higher, but it's again, the positives far outweigh the negatives in terms of every kid having a device. Of course, those numbers are going to be a little bit higher.
So then the second part of my question is, I know it's been 4 years since you did anything, and you didn't have comparison data because it was a totally different survey that you did 4 years ago. So when will you do this again? And when you do it again, will it be the same group of students, or will it be a different group of students that are surveyed?
I honestly didn't. I felt like since we didn't get shocking data, not that I'm looking for shocking data, but I think in the future I'd prefer to ask the 7th graders. I just think that we.
Yeah, but when you repeat it again, when you ask the 9th graders, will it be the 6th graders that took it that you'll ask again? I guess that's what in terms of
So that'd be
asking
what,
the
3
same
years
question.
away?
I think if you plan on 4 years, it would be they'd be.
Typically, it's every 4
So
years,
they'd be
right?
intent-
So they'd be 3 years? Okay.
Recommend every 3 years.
My question
So then it
too,
would
go
be.
ahead.
Then it would be, right? Because it'd be the 6th graders.
If it was 3 years, yeah. I mean, my question is, don't we have the resources? Can we develop our own survey to fit our needs, or should we be using a statewide?
That was what was so disappointing. So I called the Department of Education when we were doing this because they said there's an online need for survey. Great, but who's going to do the data collection? And they were not helpful at all. It was just so disappointing. And so then I contacted Reading because they have a huge grant, and they have this the whole coalition there that's through the police department that collaborates with high school. And so unless you have your own data person on site, I don't know. I mean, we could probably come up with some of our own surveys and use some of the national data and maybe customize something, but
It's the data analysis that's difficult.
Data
Mhm.
analysis that-
Is this something, is there, in terms of Jen Judkins and her talents? I mean, just.
From a creation standpoint, Jane, that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, we could definitely develop a survey. It's just, even, you mean to assess the data and all that?
Even to assess the data.
I think we could, yeah.
She's, and maybe give it more often than every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
And
You can make it as relevant as you want.
that is right,
And then-
that is right. Knowing that the issues
Pertinent
that
to what the
we
issues are.
believe that we face and the challenges that we think our students have.
I will say this was a much better measure compared to what we did 4 years ago with Community That Cares survey.
Oh, do you think so?
I think so.
One thing about the care survey was it really looked at family conflict, and we really were finding that family conflict seems to be where a lot of these emotional, social issues with the kids, you know, are generated from. So that was like one of the only things. But
That was a very
the
important
group
piece of
that
evidence
did
that
it,
came.
though, was, well, they were excellent,
Yep.
but they were PhDs and analysis and were really able to pull together information.
I just thought there were more relevant school-based issues
This
here.
is, yeah, definitely.
What-
school-based.
Interesting, because my memory from the community that cares was there were a few specific questions related to your engagement in school
Right.
that they don't really fit into the youth risk behavior survey, but I thought that they were interesting questions to ask the students about, and getting to maybe
can
being able to tailor.
Build our own,
Right.
Yeah.
hybrid or.
Right.
And then having it year after year and just really using that data, even Kev, in terms of for advisory and the programs that we're bringing in and who we having, you know, come in to talk to our kids.
It's a great idea.
And then maybe tailoring some parent programs to support what we're doing with our kids. Because
Yeah,
I
and
heard
if-
you say a couple times tonight.
If we're going to run a parent program, I hear these districts that almost make it mandatory before you start an athletic season or something like that. You know, I'm afraid we're not going to get the
Right.
attendance otherwise. It almost has to be a part of something else.
But I do think that surveying the kids after we have these presentations, they are expensive, and maybe coming up with some sort of basic surveys, that's really good data for us.
It is good data for us.
To use moving
Yeah.
forward, but what was it that, how did they benefit from it or not benefit? Or what would they do moving forward now? What would they like to see us do?
Right.
Because I think that's one of the things some of the kids have said, well, they really like the speakers and they appreciate it, but then what happens afterwards? And so, you know, we can help
Sort
them
of like
with
professional
that without-
development.
Yeah, that's got professional development written all over Dorothy, doesn't it?
What's the support after the program?
The increased communication with outside providers, what does that require? Does that require a full-time adjustment counselor?
Case management, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, how do you-
It's more regular communication.
We do
With
push.
And you
those
need personnel
folks.
to do that.
Yeah,
That's your
and
point.
So many different service providers are involved in each case.
Mhm.
There's a number of people.
We do push with parents if your child's seeing an outside provider to,
Get the release.
to sign the release and make sure that the
Yeah.
school counselors can communicate with them and we can provide similar service.
So I'm just trying to understand is the way to increase that communication, if it's a procedural issue or it's a personnel issue?
It's a personnel issue here, but it's also an issue on the outside. It's
Right.
just,
Okay.
Really-
providers need an education almost on how to work with schools and vice versa. Right? There's a
That's the
disconnect
big
there.
issue.
There's a real disconnect, and it's really frustrating when you're spinning your wheels and kid hasn't been in school for 2 weeks, and it's legitimate, but you're trying to get answers, and it's
But a way to resolve that frustration is with more personnel? Is that one way to help resolve
specifically
it?
the
Because that
adjustment
person would have the
counselor, sure,
time
yeah,
to do the
yes,
outreach and the
yes,
connection?
yes.
Okay.
I think
I also think what Carol was talking about, more of a therapeutic, to know that we have a little more of a therapeutic setting to transition these students back to school, we need to help these providers to understand that, because, you know, they're dealing with lots of different school systems.
Mhm.
Lots of times, they're also just consultants on these very challenging cases with kids, and so nobody's willing to take that leap of faith and say, okay, we push it forward. So you almost need somebody that can help, that, you know, can have these relationships, to say, okay, I know what Lynnfield is doing, we need to push, we need to get this student back. It's a lot of time.
It is.
Yeah.
A lot of
You
time.
can get broad generalizations on what a public high school can offer and what it can't. And I think, you know, we're being guided from a legal perspective to be pushing for more and more specific documentation. So that takes a lot of back and forth. You know, we're analyzing the documentation we get, drafting letters back. That's not, you know, acceptable. We need more, because, you know, to have students not in school is, you know, something that we need to be taking very seriously and be on top of. So it's a lot of collaboration internally and outside too.
Yeah, this is the whole idea of what used to be a CHINS is now a child requiring assistance, and each community is supposed to have these resource centers in place before you really go through that court process, and it just the assistance isn't there. I mean, and I'm constantly in the middle of these poor parents seeking help, and it's like the insurance companies and trying to get them through, involved in mass health, and just so many restrictions on what they can even have access to, and because there's an umbrella of services out there, but then it's jumping through hoops and trying to, and I've learned, believe me, I'm learning on the job. No one ever taught me how to negotiate with these different providers or anything like that, and learning about insurance and all that, and it's frustrating because you really want to help these families, and
And the families are stressed. You know,
right,
it's another big piece.
right.
And Kevin, certainly your burden has increased this year with the new suspension laws, the discipline, and the focus you've had at the high school with those changes. So certainly that on top of taking on a lot of the role of the adjustment counselor, which I understand learning on the job, but I mean that's a crucial element dealing with a lot of these very critical situations that these students were up against. So I really applaud both of you, all three of you, for the work you've been doing in the middle school and the high school level, and especially on the advisory, what you've done. Kevin, I applaud the great work you've done with the advisory at the high school. I just keep seeing the great work and the events. And I know it's making a lot of positive difference in many students' lives at the high school. It's a great job.
Thank you, Chris. No,
Kevin's really, the advisory has really taken off, and it really, for so many kids, has provided them with another adult that they know. And even for me, having kids that they may never have come to the school nurse, but then they'll bring somebody in because now they know who I am or whatever, and for so many aspects. And the kids get a lot from it. They really do.
And have we thought of possibly doing a similar type of program at the middle school? I know you do a lot of some of what the advisory is doing, but I think having that core group of leaders in the building at the high school is helpful, certainly to me.
I know I've been listening to Kevin as he's talked about it a lot lately, so definitely looking into that. We have, I've had with the one club alone,
right.
At least 45 kids become involved in that club.
Great.
That's great.
And so that shows me we have a lot of kids who are.
I wish we could bring our advisors down to middle school,
Yeah.
but schedule's just.
It's tough. Yeah, we could have them come to the health fair.
Yeah, let me know.
Just dive in.
I will just.
Yeah.
Kevin, I know we asked a couple of questions on here about sexual assault. Can you just give a real high level overview of any education we do on that at the high school?
Yeah, I mean, we've had, it's through guest speakers. In the past, we've done some programs around sexual violence and dating violence. So we've brought in, what's the name of the group we've gone through the last, but what's the name of that group?
Oh, Deanna's Fund.
Deanna's Fund. They've done a variety of programs each year. Last year, I think it was last year, we brought in Natalie Emka, who talked specifically about that issue. I think more can be done there. Mary and I talk about it. I think more should be done. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and that was something I did specifically when we were working with the school in the survey to find out more about how kids view relationships. And really that's where it starts. Is
Yeah.
understanding what's a healthy relationship and what's not a healthy relationship. And I didn't feel again like this group really did a great job, but it is. I see it as an area of need. I think the approach is more from a healthy relationship perspective, and but the kids did want the other dress back. We didn't have them
We had
last year,
Deanna's
but
Fund
they-
come last year.
They asked me this
about-
year, could we have them come back? So it's a one-act play, and the family actually lost their daughter to dating violence that funded this program. And it's very simple, but it's very powerful. And
Yeah.
the actor, it's a single act play, but then there's another actor that comes and they talk to the kids afterwards.
And one
For the
thing.
proms.
One thing we've done too is we've really amped up is through our student advisory, we have a number of leadership trainings. We bring in a group called Core Trainings, and a big part of what they do is they address relationships and healthy decision making, and we just extended that to our athletes this year as well. All athletic captains were trained. So you add up student advisors and captains, we're hitting a good percentage of the school. So.
And Jane, this may actually be more for you, but I know a lot of what we heard today, I would put it under this category of, I mean, we've talked about it being a community issue, but a lot of it's public safety as well. We're getting into, and I know you're doing a lot of work with Chief Breen and increasing visibility there. How would you say we're doing in terms of moving some of the working with them from feels like it's very reactionary, the relationship we have with the police, to a more proactive approach?
So I think that we're getting there. I mean, the chief and I have spent a lot of time together since the beginning of September. The good news is both departments are very willing to work together. So Chief Breen has a very high interest of working collaboratively with the schools, and obviously from what you can hear from Kevin and Ricky today, we need that. We definitely want that. So we're almost in constant communication about how can we make this relationship better. And Chief and I have actually talked about so that we're not reacting to something that happens on a Monday morning, but yet we're more proactive and getting in on the ground level. And one of the really big things, Jamie, that was alluded to a little bit tonight is the whole issue with the SRO and having a safety resource officer at the high school and to some degree at the middle school, so that there are relationships that are built not only between the kids in the SRO but also the administration in the SRO. I will tell you, when you get called in on one of these cases where there's a crisis or something has happened, I don't want to have to think about how is Kevin going to react to me and how am I going to react to Kevin. If you have a working relationship with that person from the get-go, you walk in that room and you hit the ground running immediately. So we have talked about it a lot as an administrative leadership team. We almost feel that at this point it's a non-negotiable. You heard tonight the social, emotional, mental health issues that our kids are dealing with. That's not a one-man act. Kevin cannot do that alone. Ricky cannot do that alone. Bob Cleary cannot do that alone. I cannot do that alone. We need to have basically all hands on deck to help us with these issues that are coming up. We talk about providing a safe environment for our students to be in, and one way that we can do that, to make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability, is to form that relationship with the police department and make sure that it's a constant and it's a norm rather than an exception. So you know, I know that the administrative team feels very passionately about this, and the good news is so does Chief Breen. So we're working on it, and I'm optimistic that we're going to have a really good relationship moving forward.
Yeah, and it's a great point. It's about the conversations. It's not being reactive. You're absolutely right. It's so many of those just conversations with a school resource officer and kids and parents, and how quick that spreads, and the impact that a school resource officer can have. I just, I agree. It's non-negotiable at this point in terms of what we need.
Is a school resource officer the norm for districts our size? And
well, yes. I mean, one of the things that I found out when I met with the DA and the superintendents from the North Shore, that it was either late this summer or beginning of September, there was only one other school system on the North Shore that didn't have one, and they were in the process of working on that. And so, you know, Chief Breen and I have talked about that too. It's all about resources, and it's all about making sure that we have the resources, and so I'm optimistic that somehow along the way we're going to be able to make that happen. And you know, Jamie, to your point, I mean, depending on, I mean, obviously we're not a city and we're not big, but in some of the larger cities, there are SROs in every school, right? But for a district like us to have one SRO, we would be ecstatic about that.
Absolutely.
I think, Kevin, that's a key. I mean, I worked with one. I thought it was a totally different dynamic where I work, but the SRO is just as useful as the adjustment counselor. Build a relationship with the students. And there was no better tool to discipline than having the SRO to sit down with a student to provide him or her with that conversation before they make a bad decision. And I think it's just a wonderful opportunity for Lynnfield Public Schools and Lynnfield Police Department to get to know who the students are and the challenges within the community.
Not just that, professional development for staff as well.
Huge.
You know, I've heard of some great programs that are out there that school resource officers do with staff.
And it really does go back to the fact, and you've heard me say this a million times as a teacher and a principal, and now as a superintendent, that none of us work in isolation. It is impossible at this point to do any of our jobs in isolation. We all need each other. There very often, if there's a crisis going on, I'll look around the room and Kara will be in one corner of it, the principal will be in another corner, a guidance counselor will be in another corner, and I'm in another corner. So we are really all working together. But to bring it out to the community, we have the SRO in that mix and the police department in that mix would be absolutely positively wonderful for the students that we serve.
A couple of years ago, it was normal to see a police car outside the school, and it wasn't alarming to anybody. Now, if there's a police car outside the school, you know, we get a phone call from somebody in the community, what's going on at the middle school, and it shouldn't be like that. It should just be they're a part of the community. So that, you know, for the middle school, it's more for educational purposes and for building relationships with the kids, because the police officers see the kids out in the community, and that's a part of how, when we had access regularly, that was one of the conversations that they would have. I'm another person in the community that you can count on. That's what he would say to them. So goes back to building relationships.
Always does.
Well, I want to,
Can I
Jane,
just-
you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say, we know that students need to feel safe, and be healthy in order to learn. And if we think about a lot of this conversation a number of years ago, a lot of these things that we're talking about wouldn't have been on the schools. But on the other hand, kudos to our staff, everyone, for having it be like a non-negotiable that these are issues that we're going to address to make sure that our students are healthy and safe and able to learn.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to thank you for another tremendous presentation and great work you do for Lynnfield Public Schools, so thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We'll move on to Mrs. Tremblay with the superintendent's report.
Okay. So first, I just want to touch upon some of the great things that have been happening, and I'm sure if we had the advisory girls from the high school here tonight, they would report on this. So I want to congratulate all of the fall sports teams. It was just an amazing fall for Lynnfield High School. Volleyball made tournament, field hockey made tournament, boys and girls soccer and football all made tournament. Football and girls soccer made it all the way to the semifinals this past weekend. The girls played Friday night in Worcester, and the boys played on Saturday afternoon in Lowell. And in spite of a phenomenal effort by both teams, their seasons are now ended. But they did do a great job, and so I just wanted to publicly just say how proud I am of all the athletes for representing Lynnfield so well, and for all the coaches for being those mentors and coaches for the young athletes. Again, it's a very important position that those coaches are in. And on those same lines, I don't know if any of you had an opportunity to see the phenomenal production this weekend or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday at Lynnfield High School, underneath the guidance of Doug Hodgkins. The high school put on Beauty and the Beast, and it was absolutely positively amazing. I think my favorite part of it was I went Sunday afternoon, and the auditorium was filled with elementary school students who were just so excited to see Belle up there in her gowns, and it was very, very sweet. And the high school again did a phenomenal job, and the hours, the work, the effort, the commitment that goes into that. Kevin Sear had a role in the production on Thursday and Friday. I missed his, but as did Bob Cleary. Every year they are good sports, and they show their school spirit by being part of the production. So I can't say enough about it. And so the other thing that I want to report on, it seems like it was absolutely a lifetime ago, but I had a great opportunity to go to the joint conference of the Mass school superintendents and school committee members, and it happened to be the week of November 3rd. And Dorothy actually was not at that school committee meeting that week because she was down there preparing for the conference as part of the school committees. And I just want to talk just for a couple minutes about some of the workshops that I went to. I did go to a workshop on the new law on student discipline, just really clarifying all the new procedures and protocols that surround in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, and expulsion. And I will tell you, again, to Kevin and to Ricky, they know that law inside and out. And whenever I have any questions about it, I call them and I'm asking them for clarification on it. I felt like it was my responsibility to go just to make sure that I knew of all the things that were going on. And it is very, very complex, and there's a lot to it. And I have been enlightened as to a lot of the complexities of it. So it was really a great workshop to go to. I also went to a workshop on how to effectively communicate with parents in the community through social media such as Twitter and blogging. And I'm laughing because I am such a novice blogger, if I can even call myself that. But I will tell you, it is up and coming, and there are so many school systems that is really a great way that people are communicating with the community and with parents. So just to throw out there, on my blog on the website, I've put a tremendous amount of articles and resources for parents about parenting, everything from not being able to get your kindergartner to school to how do you lessen the stress of the college application process. So I would really encourage people to get on that blog and to really look at some of the things that are on there. And in terms of Twitter, my Twitter is now up on the website as well. And so you can follow me on that. And I will tell you, for people who are not getting into the schools, and Jamie can attest this because he follows me every single day on Twitter, and I love it. So does Chris, actually. If you want to know where I am and what I'm doing, just jump on Twitter, because I am constantly tweeting out about where I am and what I'm doing for our children. This week I spent a tremendous amount of time at Summer Street School with gender bias going in classrooms, and I was tweeting out about some of the wonderful things that were happening in second grade. So I learned a whole lot more about Twitter and not a whole lot about blogging, so I'm continuing to look to find other ways to make sure that I'm doing it to the best of my ability. I did go to another workshop on meeting the needs of learning disabled students, because I just feel like we can't get enough of that. We are constantly talking about it as administrative leadership team. I hear principals talking about making sure that we're doing the best for our students, and so that also was an interesting workshop. One of the last workshops I went to was on Recovery High School. Fran Rosenberg, who is the executive director of the Northeast Consortium, she was presenting. One of the reasons why I went to this is because we are part of NEC, and one of my goals is the two consortiums that we belong to are SEAM and NEC, and I'm trying to find time in my schedule where I can actually get out and tour each of the programs that they have, and I've not been able to do this. So I figured I would go to the Recovery High School one, and I will tell you, I was hugely impressed with the presentation that took place that day, in terms of what it takes to get into the Recovery High School, the commitment that it takes to get in, the commitment that it takes to stay there, the amazing staff that works at Recovery High School. I was just hugely impressed and very grateful that we have this resource for us on the North Shore for our students who do struggle with alcohol and drug addiction. So that was quite an eye-opener for me, and I really enjoyed it. Before I go on to a couple other things, are there any questions or comments?
Can I just add one comment?
Sure.
We did have someone from Lynnfield who was a presenter at the conference. Jen Judkins graciously agreed to my invitation to come present on a Saturday morning, roped two of her colleagues from Wilmington and Burlington to go with her, and did a great presentation on, she called it Learning Forward, about technology in the classroom. And it was on a Saturday morning. There was great attendance. They got about, I would say, 10 minutes into their presentation, and the questions just kept coming so fast about technology and choices and how does it all work that they had to sort of abandon their presentation. But it was a great presentation and very well received, and I really appreciate her coming down and doing that and representing Lynnfield that way.
And I did speak to her about that, and she was just thrilled to go down. That, Jen loves to share her knowledge, and she loves to share the wealth, if you will. And, her viewpoint is if we can get more and more people using technology in a genuine and authentic way, she'll drive to the ends of the earth to do that. So thank you for recognizing that, Dorothy. So just something new that we're doing in the Lynnfield Public Schools. I have developed a METCO advisory board. And after Layla Masama gave her report to the school committee, it occurred to me that there are several resources that METCO Inc. has that I'm not sure that everyone fully is aware of in terms of faculty and staff in Lynnfield Public Schools. And as I started thinking about what we're doing as a professional learning community, we do so many things that spread the breadth of preschool to grade 12. We're working on DDMs, we're working on common assessments, K-12, we're working on implementing assessment meetings, looking at our ELA curriculum, looking at our music curriculum, doing instructional rounds K-12. And when I thought about our METCO program, we have students K-12, but yet we don't have anything vertically that spreads through K-12, except for our METCO director. And so I thought it would be a good idea to put together an advisory board so that we can keep very close eyes on this subgroup of students and to really support Lalo and to help Lalo do everything she needs to do to make sure that these students are successful. And so the board is comprised of, it's Layla Masamba, myself, Kara Morrow, our SPED director, Maureen Fennessy, who is our ELA curriculum director for the elementary schools, Mary Kate Adams, who is our ELL person. She works with some of our METCO students, Ricky Shanklin, the assistant principal at Lynnfield Middle School, Mike Moresco, who is the department head for guidance at the high school, and Bob Clary, who's the principal at the high school. And so just to have that much talent sitting around a table looking at these group of students, I thought that it would be really important, and I think that it will really help us make sure that we are best serving that subgroup of students. I had a pre-planning meeting with Lalo this week, and we will probably have our first meeting, I would love to say, before the holiday break. Chances are it's going to be the beginning of January. So if anyone has any questions, thoughts, or concerns on that, I'd be happy to discuss them. Good? Okay. I did want to touch upon a little bit of something that hit the press within the past week, and that is the teacher evaluation from the DESE released the information regarding the 2013-14 teacher evaluation. And the only reason why I want to talk about this is because I want to make sure that people fully understand the ratings. And so, let me see if I can find my paper on that. So the DESE has released that 92% of our teachers fell in the proficient rating, and 7% of our teachers fell in the needs improvement, 1 in the unsatisfactory, with 48% of our teachers in all evaluated. And that is all true. And per negotiations with the Lynnfield Teachers Association, half of our staff was evaluated last year, and this year everybody's on cycle. So everybody's being evaluated. What I wanted to share with you was, okay, this is what I want to share with you. The language around exemplary and proficient, because I want people to fully understand the difference between exemplary and proficient. So the language around exemplary says the educator's performance consistently and significantly exceeds the requirements of a standard and could serve as a model of practice district-wide. So that piece right there, model of practice district-wide, is really important, and I'll come back to that in a minute. The exemplary level represents the highest level of performance. It exceeds the already high standard of proficient. A rating of exemplary is reserved for performance on an indicator or standard that is of such high level that it could serve as a model for educators in the school, district, or state. Okay, and so when we talk about that as an administrative leadership team, that is telling us that if we are giving somebody the exemplary rating, they're doing that. They're serving as a model. They are modeling for our schools, for our district, and for our state. And as an administrative leadership team and with the Lynnfield Teachers Association, we talked about that, and we hold that language to its word. And so if we do not have teachers that are going district-wide, statewide, or, from even in their own school and modeling this, then we, in all good consciousness, really can't give them the exemplary rating. We're working on that. We're talking about it at the administrative level in terms of we have excellent, excellent teachers here that meet every other requirement of the exemplary except for the fact that they're not able to model. And the reason why they're not able to model is because they're teaching our students. So we've got to figure out that piece of it, whether it's through the professional development days or somehow. But I just did not want anyone to think that we did not have excellent teachers in this district. We are just really upholding that language to what it really is telling us. And just for a comparison, I want to read what the proficient standard is. It says the educator's performance fully and consistently meets the requirements of a standard. Proficient is the expected rigorous level of performance for educators. It is demanding but attainable level of performance for most educators. At the proficient level, educators integrate the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for effective content area instruction or leadership. That's a pretty demanding description of what that is. And so I just wanted to be crystal clear about where we stand as an administrative team and where we stand as a district and how we're rating teachers. Any thoughts on that? It's pretty clear.
Can you just go into a little bit, is it based on multiple observations? Is it based on?
It is, so the way that we negotiated with the, and administrators jump in, the way that we negotiated with the union is that each professional status teacher will have 2 observations over the course of a year. Is that right? Is that what we did? The 2 over the course of the year, and they're on a 2-year cycle, right? 4 over the, okay. Say that again?
In addition to the walkthroughs.
In addition to the walkthrough. So in addition to walking in and doing a quick write-up. The good news about the new teacher evaluation system is we really feel as administrators, and so do the teachers, that it's actually more opportunities to get into classrooms and to see genuine, authentic teaching. So if you walk into someone's classroom on a Monday morning at 8 o'clock, you see what you see. Under the old evaluation, you would know 3 weeks out, Jane Trumbull's coming into my classroom on that Monday morning at 8 o'clock. And so it really provides a more genuine and authentic model for us to look at teaching and learning.
As a member of that,
Go ahead.
As a member of that committee, the evaluation committee, we, the state language, recommended language was 1 walkthrough a year, which was 10 minutes or more, in order to be valid. But we, as a committee of teachers, administrators, Kara was on it as well, we had decided that wasn't enough. Teachers wanted there to be more evidence. Teachers wanted us in their classroom more. I think that's something that we should be proud of.
Right.
So we did decide that we would be in more than once.
Well, and the other part of that is, in addition to the walkthroughs and observations, the teachers provide a portfolio of evidence
Right.
about their practice to be evaluated as well.
Right, and so each teacher actually was trained, again, on Google Docs, and they actually have evidence folders that all the administrators can go in and talk about the evidence that they're uploading and putting in there.
Question about the 48% that were involved in the evaluation process. Were they all professional status?
It varied. I mean,
Okay.
it really.
So there was some non-professional status in that group?
Absolutely, yes.
Because they'd be a non-professional status are evaluated every year anyway.
Right, they would have to be in on that. And in terms of the professional status, the way that we used to do it was half of the staff was evaluated 1 year and half of the staff was evaluated the other year. So the way that we basically did it was to start out, if you were supposed to be on cycle that year, you were on cycle that year. But this year, all of the teachers are being evaluated. It's a lot of work for the administrators. I mean, I think it's well worth it, but it's very, very time consuming.
So
Do
can
it
I
right.
follow up on that? If there are teachers that are being evaluated that are non-professional status, needs improvement could just mean they're still growing into the job.
Right, so needs improvement is, and this is a very hard thing for our teachers to wrap their heads around, and actually all of us. Needs improvement is not a bad thing. The needs improvement indicator says the educator's performance on a standard is below the requirements of a standard, but is not considered to be unsatisfactory at this time. Improvement is necessary and expected. Educators whose performance on a standard is rated as needs improvement may demonstrate inconsistencies in practice or weakness in a few key areas. Tell me any brand new teacher that does not have that as part of their repertoire. They may not yet fully integrate and or apply their knowledge and skills in an effective way. They may be new to the field or to this assignment and are developing their craft. So that really justifies, a teacher should not be upset if they get a needs improvement.
Is it fair to assume that the needs improvement 7% was non-professional, represented non-professional status?
I don't absolutely have that data. If I were a betting woman, I
Curious
would
about
probably
that.
tell you yes.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, I think the biggest point here is, and we had this conversation last year on the school council as well. It's a new system. It's arguably a better system because it's more comprehensive. It's a different rating system, and I think that creates a little bit of discomfort. But I think what the results are showing us is that our teachers are at an extremely high quality and performing at an extremely high level. And I want to emphasize that because I think it can throw people off when they don't see anyone in the exemplary category. That's not the point of this.
Right.
That's not a reflection of our teachers lacking something.
Right.
Well, I think, given what Jane has been saying about the rigor of these administrators evaluating our teachers and the difference between the number of teachers who were rated proficient compared to the statewide rating of proficiency, I believe it's at least 10% higher that were rated proficient here, is a good indication of that.
I just want to publicly address that because I didn't want any assumptions about where our teachers are. The last thing that I just want to fill you in on is my work with the new superintendent induction program. I had a full day on Wednesday, and I will tell you, I always come away from those days just completely excited and rejuvenated about the work that we have together. It is a phenomenal cohort of superintendents and coaches. And on Wednesday, we spent a tremendous amount of time talking about the data that we're gathering and how I will present that to you and to the community once it all actually comes in looking at the count data, the hear data, and the see data, and just trying to make sense of it all and figure out what our trends are and what our patterns are. So it was just a phenomenal day. And I just really want to thank the school committee for really supporting me and being part of that program, because I think that it's going to make a huge difference for us as a whole community as we move forward. So thank you for that. That's it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to public participation. Hearing and seeing none. We'll move on for adjournment of the meeting. Do I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving.